actually got a member of the media from Yahoo Sports that is acknowledging the two owners of Unrivaled that are on the committee are absolutely causing a conflict of interest. Not only is it a conflict of interest, it is extremely bad and poor optics.
This isn't just another media take. Finally, a journalist is voicing what everyone has quietly realized for months. Yahoo Sports has broken from the usual WNBA media narrative to highlight an issue that should have been clear from the beginning. Breanna, Stewart, and Nafisa Collier are negotiating against the very league they aim to compete in. And until now, almost no one wanted to openly discuss it.
Of the idea of the conflict of interest between Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart and the interest of Unrivaled may not necessarily aligning with the interest of the W.
Well, Fee and Stewie are not only WNBA players, they are on the executive committee. So as is Kelsey Plum, she's playing in Unrivaled. 3 of the 7 people on that board who can now vote for a strike are part of Unrivaled. That is not necessarily a bad thing. I think the thing about conflict of interest, though, is just the simple fact that you as a person have interests that conflict with one another. Yes. The key thing is just keeping in mind that is...
Let's break down what's really happening. 3 of the 7 members on the WNBA Players Association Executive Committee, the ones who can vote to authorize a strike, are tied to Unrivaled. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier founded the league, and Kelsey Plum plays in it, and even owns equity. These aren't just players with overseas contracts. They own a competing league that profits if the WNBA goes dark. Here's the math. The same committee that voted to strike over a CBA proposal also rejected salary increases that could have given players 9x their current pay. And the people making these decisions? They're running a startup league that depends on the WNBA schedule being cleared to survive.
Fee and Stewie run this league that makes them money. There are players who played in the first season who have equity in the league who are able to make money off of this league, right? And that's the thing, is just to keep it in mind that these are 2 different things. If we want to go all the way back, like players have been playing overseas the entirety of the WNBA. That is also a conflict of interest because, as we know, the schedules overlap. You have to make decisions, all of these kinds of things. But to say that there's no conflict of interest is absolutely ridiculous, because there is.
Of course there is. You can say that you'll take your personal interest out of something, but we're all human, right? Like, these biases exist. You can't always totally and completely take...
Here's why this is such a big deal. The journalist hits the nail on the head. You can't separate personal interest from these decisions. And she's right. Biases exist whether you admit them or not. Stewart and Collier can claim they're keeping their business separate from their union roles. But human psychology doesn't work that way. Think about what's on the line for them. Unrivaled just finished its first season. Minimal buzz. No major stars outside the founders. And a format that hasn't caught fire with fans. Meanwhile, Project Rock, the Ice Cube-backed league, is gearing up as direct competition. If the WNBA goes on strike, Unrivaled suddenly gets a huge opportunity. Expand, pivot, maybe even switch to traditional 5-on-5 basketball, all while the established league is shut down.
Is it a concern of yours, though?
It's always going to be a concern of mine, no matter what we're talking about. And I say this, like, obviously as a journalist, right? Like, this is kind of the number one thing. So I always am concerned that it becomes a part of it. You know, I would hope when you're talking about Stewie and Fee that they understand that as well and can compartmentalize that just like athletes do for anything. But it is certainly a part of these talks, and it cannot.
And this is where it gets uncomfortable. The journalist points out something obvious. Conflict of interest matters. It's journalism 101. So why hasn't anyone else said it? ESPN coverage reads like press releases from the Players Association. Every owner looks greedy. Every player demand looks justified. Every union move seems heroic. But here's the obvious question no one is asking. Why are the co-founders of a competing league the ones deciding if the WNBA shuts down for a season?
So what is this called? Hoops 360 podcast from Yahoo Sports. Cassandra Negley and Caroline Fenton. Bravo. Bravo for having the guts to go out there as members of the media and just say it. She said, is there a conflict? Absolutely. Of course there is. And none of these other media members got the guts to say a thing about it. Not a thing. It's been one of the most embarrassing parts of anything related to these negotiations and how they're trying to conduct business is the fact that the media silence is deafening on this one major issue. And understand, if somebody like me and somebody like them sits back here and bangs the table that this is a huge conflict of...
Now let's look at this from the owner's perspective. Imagine you're negotiating with a union that has strike authorization. The proposal on the table could cost the league $700 million. You're offering salary increases that would multiply current pay by 9 times. And sitting across from you, people who literally own a competing league, going after the same players, the same sponsors, the same TV spots. How do you negotiate in good faith when the other side has a financial incentive for your league to fail? How do you know their rejection isn't about fair pay, but about creating an opening for their own venture? This isn't speculation. It's basic business logic. If I owned a restaurant and negotiated with a rival across the street about shared parking, everyone would see the conflict. But in the WNBA, somehow we're supposed to pretend it's fine.
The owners feel about it. How do you think they feel about it? They're sitting back going, wait a minute. These people are on the committee. Hell, the president is now playing for Project B. And they can authorize a strike? You know, I think the WNBA Players Association better be careful of one thing. Because what happens when the owners say, let's lock them out for the hell of it. Let's lock them out to send them a loud and clear message. Let's not only lock them out, but tell them you're not getting that revenue sharing, period.
Here's the nuclear option nobody's talking about. What if the owners lock out the players instead of waiting for a strike? Just shut it down. No negociación. No compromise. Just, revenue sharing is off the table, we're cutting our losses and moving on. Suddenly, that imaginary picket line becomes very real. You'll quickly see who's truly committed to union solidarity, and who's willing to cross that line for a 9x salary increase. Players like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buckers aren't naive. They see the conflict of interest. They know Stewart and Collier have motivations beyond the best deal for all WNBA players. So the question is, if there's a lockout, who breaks first? Who puts their personal financial future ahead of standing with the union? Because I promise you, not everyone is willing to risk their career to protect Unrivaled's business interests.
And then one of the most fascinating parts of all this is who would step across that line. Because you're going to get some players that are like, oh no, bump that shit. I'm taking a 9-time salary increase. We're going to find out real fast who is aligned and who's not. Oh, but they voted for a strike. Yeah. But if there's a lockout, they have to cross an imaginary picket line at that point. Who gonna cross it? And look, somebody like Caitlin Clark, Caitlin Clark's not stupid. She's not stupid at all. She knows them being involved is a conflict of interest. Sophie Cunningham, I promise you, she knows them being involved is a conflict of interest. Those two ladies are not dumb.
This is what makes the media silence so damning. The Yahoo Sports journalist points out something obvious. Conflict of interest is always the top concern. That's professional integrity. That's doing your job. So where's that same energy from everyone else? The WNBA media has been agenda-driven, prioritizing social messaging over basic journalism. No one wants to ask the hard questions. No one wants to point out that having competing league owners negotiate your union contract is insane, because it might make the players look bad. But this isn't about making anyone look bad. It's about fairness and transparency. The owners deserve to negotiate with people focused on WNBA compensation, not people plotting how to position their own league if the WNBA falls apart.
But they also don't have, and they are also not ate up with a bunch of social agenda nonsense like the majority of these players and the media. That's something, by the way, the players and the media have in common, is their agenda. Oh my God, look at us, we're gay and proud, and all that mess. Hey, bravo. Hoops 360, bravo. Great job. I know you're ladies, but bravo on showing a pair. I think WNBA media would appreciate that. Peace, I'm out.
Let's bring this full circle. The conflict of interest in the WNBA negotiations isn't going anywhere. It's going to influence every discussion, every proposal, and every counteroffer from here on out. Everyone knows it. The owners know it, the players know it, and finally, at least one media outlet is willing to say it out loud. Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier are in a no-win situation. They can't push for maximum WNBA salaries while also running a competing league that benefits if the WNBA struggles. Those goals clash at a fundamental level. The smart move would have been simple. Step away from the union leadership the moment Unrivaled launched. Let other players handle the CBA negotiations. Build their league without casting doubt over every decision. But they didn't. They stayed in power, voted to authorize a strike, and rejected proposals that could have dramatically increased player pay. Maybe they truly believe they're doing what's best for all WNBA players. Maybe they think they can keep their business interests separate. But perception matters. And right now, it looks like the people deciding whether the league shuts down stand to gain if it does. Credit where it's due. Yahoo Sports broke ranks and called it as it is. Cassandra Negley and Caroline Fenton from the Hoops 360 podcast asked the obvious question months ago. Isn't this a conflict of interest? The answer is clear. Yes, it absolutely is. Now the big question. Will anything actually change? Will the media start asking the same hard questions? Will the Players Association take steps to fix this conflict? Will Stewart and Collier step back to remove even the appearance of impropriety? Or will everyone continue pretending the problem doesn't exist? Attacking anyone who raises it and framing criticism as anti-player or anti-women's sports. This isn't about being anti-player. It's about ethics and governance. You cannot negotiate against a league while owning a competing one. That's not controversial. That's common sense. If the WNBA Players Association wants to be taken seriously, they need to remove the conflict. Put people in charge of negotiations who aren't financially tied to the league's failure. Show that these talks are about fair pay, not creating openings for Unrivaled. Right now, owners have every reason to be skeptical. They're being asked to commit $700 million to the league while negotiating with people who own a rival business. That's a recipe for lockouts, legal battles, and a total breakdown in trust. So here's the question for you. If you were an owner, would you trust this negotiating committee? Could you believe Stewart and Collier are putting the WNBA first when they have millions invested in a league that competes for players, sponsors, and attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conflict isn't going away, and it will define the CBA negotiations over the next few months.